to another GCSE Computer Science video with me, Mr Goff, for MrGoff.com. Today's video will focus on the TCP IP stack. TCP and IP work together when we send data over the internet. It's often referred to as the TCP IP stack because it involves 4 layers that we move through in order when the data is sent out, and then it goes through the same 4 layers in the reverse order when it's received at the other end. Those layers are the application layer, transport layer, internet layer, and link layer, and we're going to take a look at each of them in more detail now. The application layer, not unsurprisingly, is where we will find applications operating. This includes things like web browsers, email clients, and FTP clients. A web browser will use HTTP or HTTPS to communicate backwards and forwards with a web server. An email client will use SMTP to send messages, an IMAP to be able to retrieve them. An FTP client will use FTP in order to upload and download files. Each application will make requests and pass data to the transport layer. If you type in a website that you'd like to visit into a web browser, then it will be your request for that site that will be packaged up to be sent off. If you compose an email message, then it is your message that's going to be packaged up. If you try and upload a file, it's the file you're going to upload that is going to be sent off to be packaged up. At the receiving end, the application layer receives data from the transport layer and it deals with the results. If we think about our request for a web page, that would be received by a web server, which would then know that it needs to start this whole process again and send us a web page. So it would send that web page off to be packaged up, it would put the IP addresses on it, it would be sent back to us, and then when it's received by us and gets all the way back up to our application layer, then that website would be displayed in our web browser. In a similar way, the email client and FTP client would update when they receive information that a message or a file has been successfully delivered. The transport layer is where the protocols TCP and UDP operate. However, we'll only be looking at the functions of TCP for the remainder of this video. At the transport layer, data is split into small chunks called packets. Each packet is labelled with the number of this packet and the total number of packets in the transmission. At the receiving end, the transport layer puts the packets back into order by using the packet numbers. If any of the packets are missing, then it sends out a request for them to be resent. The internet layer is where IP operates. The senders and receivers' IP addresses are added to the packets received from the transport layer, and then those packets are passed on to the link layer. When packets are received from the link layer at the other end, if they're at the right IP address, then the senders and receivers' IP addresses can be removed, and the packets will be passed to the transport layer. The link layer is where MAC addresses operate. The MAC address of our router and the MAC address of the first router in the chain to reach our desired IP will be used to send the data to that device. At the receiving end, the link layer removes the MAC addresses and passes the packets to the internet layer to check if they're at their destination yet. Let's just go over the whole process one more time with an example. Let's say you compose an email and send it to a friend. You'll have your email client open at the application layer. You type up the email and you click send. All of the information from your email is sent off to the transport layer. Here, your email message is split up into packets. Each packet is given a packet number and the total number of packets in the message. And then these packets are passed on to the internet layer. At the internet layer, the senders and receivers' IP addresses are added and the packets are passed on to the link layer. At the link layer, MAC addresses are used, and the MAC address of the next router in the chain is used to send our data on to the next router. When packets are received at another router, we remove the MAC addresses and pass them up to the internet layer. At this point, we check to see if they're at their destination or not. If not, then we will use the MAC address of the next router in the chain, and this process will keep going until eventually we get to a link layer where we've reached the correct IP address. When packets reach the internet layer at the correct IP for your friend's email server, Then the sender's and receiver's IP addresses will be removed and the packets are passed up to the transport layer. The transport layer will then reorder all the packets and make sure that all of them are there. If any are missing, it will re-request those. When it has the whole of your email message, it will pass that on to the application layer. Finally, at the application layer, your friend's email server will store this message until they look it up later on. That brings us to the end of this video on the TCP IP stack and this series on networks. Join me again soon when I'll be looking at cybersecurity. Try the resources at mrgoff.com to help you revise computer science, and until next time, it's bye for now.